It helps if I unmute the microphones for everybody. Good morning, one and all. Welcome along to Season 3, Episode 21 of the UK Cowboys podcast. It is Victory Polo Tuesday again. Victory Polo. Shout out to our sponsor, Cowboys Experience. Jamie, how are we?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. It's midweek in it, but nothing beats, they say, Victory Tuesday, as we call it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just so everybody knows, we do have a couple of people who will be joining us presently. So you have the two lovely members of the admin team. You have myself, the sexy Irish accent, and you have the wonderful Yorkshire accent of Jamie Smith.
Don't know about that, mate.
Well, we're going to tell ourselves this anyway. So, as we say, we'll be joined shortly by one or two more people. But it's great to see everybody thrown in the comments there into us. As always, make sure you get your comments in. Let us know your thoughts from the weekend's game, your studs and duds, what you liked, what you didn't like about the game. There shouldn't be very many things to dislike about that performance on Sunday. And yeah, let us know. As we say, it's great to see. Literally, as we went live, we could see the chats or the comments flying in from all of our usual suspects. So, Valenti, Benny, Joe, DJ Dog, as always, great to see you. But Jamie, take it away. Sunday. What are your initial thoughts?
I think the only way to describe Sunday is the performance of the season so far. We needed a big bounce back after the debacle against the Broncos, and I think we got it. And I know I was looking through I was watching back through earlier on and just trying to pick up some points and look at the stats. And I know stats always don't tell the whole story, and I think the perfect example of that is probably the run game. The run game, no one got over 50 yards individually, but the run game, if you look at some of the runs, they were picking up those first downs. So, I mean, it was converting those short ways to keep the drives alive. And then just perfectly for CeeDee Lamb's first touchdown, the block by Zeke, it was unreal. I mean, and that's what we want. I mean, it's nice to see Zeke and Pollard get these yards, but it's doing the dirty work like that doesn't always get them the acknowledgement. So, yeah, perfect. And it was nice to see on the defensive side of the ball, the three, what you could call our three starting cornerbacks, all getting a pick as well, which is good. And I think we discussed in the admin group, didn't we? Anthony Brown he balled out this week. He's been getting some stick from us all, but he balled out this week. Yeah,
it was on Sunday. It was a bit like that Oprah gif. You get an interception, and you get an interception, and you get an interception, and it's always rich to post that picture into the group, and we absolutely love it. So we do. Yeah, but like, I mean, well, that comment came up like when I was doing stats for the show. I was going, Jesus, there's so many names are going to show up. And even when I was doing Dorrance Armstrong, I think Dorrance only had one or two tackles, but obviously he had a sack on one of those tackles, and he also had the blocked punt. So, like, everybody is contributing. And I know, Jamie, one of the guys you'll want to talk about later is Chauncey Goldston, who I think he had three tackles for a loss.
You should have seen, I had the fortune to be fortunate to be the one that covered it on Twitter this week. And when he got the pass deflection, I was like, I couldn't type quick enough to get it pushed out. Like I say, it's one of them, innit? And it's scary to think that how good this team is playing at the minute, and we've still got a lot of starters on defense due back, and I know we've touched on a couple of bits there, but one thing that was nice to see that I think we were all missing, I was chatting to Mike on my lunch break earlier, it was nice to see the sideline catch toe taps from Michael Gallup. How we've missed them.
Oh, yes.
It was just a shame that the one towards the end, I think it was down at the 1-1 that he just was there and knocked him out, because it was a great throw. It was an even better catch, and it would have been nice to have seen him being able to stay in bounds, but we can't be greedy, can we? I mean, a 40 burger this week. I think we would have took a 3-point win after how we performed the week before.
Absolutely, but I mean, I think the one thing that has showed was that the Broncos game was not a resetting of the norm. Like, this Cowboys team went out and dominated. They absolutely dominated, and that showed what this team is capable of. And as you say, we were without an All-Pro defensive end, a Pro Bowl defensive end, and our all-world left tackle.
Exactly.
And still won by 40 points.
I think the Broncos game as well was probably something this team needed, just for the fact that there was all the hype building up, and sometimes you can run away with the hype, can't you? And you can get a little bit ahead of yourself. Yeah, I think we all know that this team isn't perfect, but I think the makeup of the team puts it towards that way, if that makes sense. I try to contradict myself. And yeah, it would have been nice to. I know Valenti posted it a bit earlier on, saying about it. It's a shame it weren't 50, which, to be fair, it isn't. With how poor we were the week before. But it was smart to take the starters out. No point in risking them. Get them out of the game. Get some of these backups or some of these players that are coming back from injuries. Get them some decent chunk time of the game. Do you know what I mean? The game was over by half time. But I suppose the third quarter is always one of them minutes you don't really want to chance your arm a little bit and show a little bit of disrespect and pulling your starters at half time. Because that can come back into bite you in the arse, can it, sometimes? So third quarter away, like I say, get Cooper Rush in there, get some of the running backs in there. No point risking. Like I say, the game was over. Now we move on to Kansas story.
Yeah. And before we go any further, we're going to bring in our good friend from Blogging the Boys, RJ. How are things, sir? How are you getting on?
It's great to be with you guys. Happy Tuesday evening. Sorry I was late, but it's great to be here. I'm hoping Belgium pulls this off. I'm a big Kevin De Bruyne fan. So other than that, just enjoying life. What's not to enjoy right now?
Loving that t-shirt, RJ. Loving it.
Actually, I don't want to be a fraud. This is not a Dak Prescott t-shirt. I went to the Cowboys game in Indianapolis in 2018, and this is actually an Adam Vinatieri t-shirt, just because he's the GOAT, obviously. But so love Dak. Dak's on his way there. But this is it's an Adam Vinatieri t-shirt.
Yeah.
Still a good one, though. Still a good one.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget Adam Vinatieri got a start over here in Europe in the World Football League back in the day. So, I mean, all goats start here over in the UK and Ireland. But RJ, give us your thoughts from the weekend. Jamie has given his initial thoughts, but what were your own from Sunday night's performance?
It was impressive. I think it was last week was not a lot of fun. And on our post-game show after the Cowboys lost to the Broncos, I said something to the effect of, they're going to say all the right things. They're going to say that, this was a 1-week thing. This was an aberration. And that might be true, but, we won't know if that's true until next week against the Falcons. And I even said then, I said, if they win in kind of unimpressive fashion, it'll be hard to kind of buy that if they go out. And at the time, actually, I said if they win the way that the Chiefs were beating the Packers that day without Aaron Rodgers, just kind of still like barely winning, like winning, running on fumes. I think if the Cowboys had won something like 17-10 on Sunday, we would still be kind of be saying, yeah, they won, but are they really back? The offense didn't do this, the offense didn't do that, et cetera, blah blah. So the fact that they came out and they were spectacular on offense, they were spectacular on defense, obviously had the punt block. I mean, it was a statement. I mean, I don't know any other, you know, unique way to categorize it or shape it, but it was as impressive of a rebound as we've seen from any Cowboys team in recent memory.
Yeah, and I think that kind of highlights one of the big points is that, you know, they rebounded straight away. In previous seasons, we've seen the team kind of have one bad performance, followed up with another, and followed up with another after that, whereas they put everything to bed on Sunday night.
Yeah, and that's, you know, this has kind of been the season of, you know, they wouldn't have won that before, right? They wouldn't have won in New England. They wouldn't have won that day with all the penalties and weird things kind of working against them. They wouldn't have won resting Dak and having to play Cooper Rush, you know, and then we would have sat here and we would have made the excuses. We would have said after New England, well, you know, they had all these penalties. What can you do? You know, you're going to lose those games. And then we would have said, well, they were without Dak. You know, how were they supposed to win? Cooper Rush was his first start. And so this has been a really, and, you know, in that sense, the Denver game kind of, you know, picked at those old wounds, right? Like that was the letdown. That was the, man, they're really, you know, they're on cloud nine right now. Is this the bottoming out? And so that's why to kind of stop that skid, I thought was really impressive. It's been a very different season. I think obviously they've had successes in other years and had big wins and had some great seminal moments, but not in a, like, you know, this season feels different way. This season does feel different. It's a very Mike McCarthy led effort, and you can really kind of see and taste that on them each and every week.
Yeah, and I think you pulled up a great one on Twitter earlier today from Brandon Gautin over in Bleeding Green Nation. You know that he's saying he thinks this is a Super Bowl team.
Yeah, I actually just finished recording with Brandon. He and I do a show every week where we talk about the NFC East and hit on the Cowboys and the Eagles and everybody else and just kind of the state of things. And he has been saying for a few weeks now, he obviously wrote about it today, that he thinks the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. And, you know, something we talked about on our show today, he remembered, and this is an unfortunate memory for us, but, you know, he said he was looking back at some old articles he'd written. And in 2017, the season that Philly won the Super Bowl, you'll recall they destroyed the Cowboys at AT&T Stadium on Sunday Night Football. The night Jerry Jones got his gold jacket presented to him and his Hall of Fame ring. At the time, that was actually the worst loss the Cowboys had ever sustained at AT&T Stadium. And he just talked about how that year was this constant, like there was a new record, there was a new thing, there was like a new piece of ground that the Eagles were breaking, you know, doing all these things. And, you know, that's what last year kind of felt like. You know, they had the 29 points in the second quarter, the most they've ever scored in a single quarter. And it's just like there's a new thing each and every week, so to speak. You can't like plan that, but you know, when it comes to New England, Dak throws for more yards against a Bill Belichick-led team than anybody ever. Like it feels like every week they're approaching or establishing themselves in some sort of territory that hadn't, you know, happened in a long time or hadn't ever happened. And just kind of, you know, again, we've seen seasons that look like other seasons before. This is a successful season that looks like nothing we've ever seen, at least from the Cowboys.
Yeah, very, very true. And I suppose we've kind of seen so far this season, you know, and this has been one thing we've discussed here, and we haven't had a chance to catch up with you really. This has very much been everybody is contributing this season. Like myself and Jamie were saying before you joined us that, you know, if you said we were going to play this game without our all-world left tackle, our all-pro defensive end, and a Pro Bowl defensive end, and win by 40 points, people would have laughed at us previously.
Yeah, and that's where they're unlike themselves, right? I mean, you know, it's been a story of, you know, Tyron's out, sorry, you know, like Zeke suspended, sorry, you know, like everything's going to fall apart, everything's going to, you know, dissipate because, you know, the Cowboys under, you know, it gets framed as under Jason Garrett. Obviously, he's kind of the person that it all starts and ended with. But under Jason Garrett, I think they were a great team when all 22 starters were healthy and everything went according to plan. And that happened sometimes, happened a lot of times, but they were incapable of responding to any level of adversity. They just couldn't. I mean, it just wasn't something that they had in their wheelhouse. And to that point, I mean, you're right. Down Tyron Smith, down DeMarcus Lawrence, down Randy Gregory, down Michael Gallup for a majority of this season. Obviously, he's back now. Down Neville Gallimore, down Brent Urban. I mean, it's who's next? What's down Greg Zuerlein, right? I mean, I know, some people don't put a lot of value in the kicking game, but I mean, it is a and that's what I think Mike McCarthy has done a great job about. He talks all the time about that 2010 Packers team and how it took 73 dudes or whatever it was to win that Super Bowl. They were one of the most, IR plagued teams to ever win it. He's, you can put into this what you want, but he's a Pittsburgh guy who has, spent a lot of time in the Midwest, obviously here in the United States. I mean, there's a certain disposition to him that he's going to get his hands dirty. You know what I mean? He's going to roll up his sleeves and get his hands dirty, and he's going to work deep into the night if he has to, because he's going to get the job done. And I think that mentality has really bled over to the entire team.
Do you know, as a not to try and jinx it, I know I'm saying that, I know Rich will jump on the bandwagon, but don't you think it has a little bit of a feel of, I think, which Super Bowl was it? Was it the second Super Bowl season where the defense just weren't getting any plaudits whatsoever? I think that year when they ranked the top defense in the NFL, one Pro Bowl vote, and this year, like you say, we're missing so many players on the defense, and they're coming out and they're playing at a high level. I think this weekend, 10 completed passes they allowed from 27 attempts, and the defense just continues. Apart from Diggs, continues to not get probably the respects that each.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jamie. It's people are fine crediting Trayvon, they're fine crediting Micah Parsons, but that's it, right? Like everything else is it's Dan Quinn or it's whatever. Anthony Brown's played really well. I've said a lot of not kind things about Anthony Brown. Leighton Vander Esch is playing all right. You know what I mean? Like the floor has been raised. I think and that we're seeing that like on a consistent basis. And a lot of people will say it's the Falcons. Matt Ryan's not who he used to be. They held an NFL offense to 3 points. I mean, that's a difficult thing to do. I don't mean to grandstand about that, but that is a very difficult thing to do. And that was because 2 weeks ago they held the Minnesota Vikings. It's a really impressive run. As DJ Dog, who is fantastic, notes 4 touchdowns from the defense and special teams this year. And that's the thing, like, I think we fall into these lulls where, we expect Dak to throw for 350 every week. We expect, Amari to have 150 in his 2 touchdowns or whatever. And I mean, they scored 43 points and it was just kind of a chill day for the offense. And they're different. And that's, we've seen that before too, right? Like we've seen the offense rely on something to be elite. The run game has to be elite. Romo has to be elite, whatever. We've seen that. And if they're not elite, if they're not in those like elite of elite moments, then they're going to lose. Like, and we've seen that. And they're capable of adjusting. They're capable of winning however it is. If a team's daring them to run the football, they're going to do it. They're not going to run it with just Zeke. They're going to run it with Tony Pollard. If they're daring you to pass, they're going to do it. They've been humbled. And I think that obviously that worked to their benefit this past week. I mean, and then, like you said, on defense, they're opportunistic and they're not elite, but they're very opportunistic and they know their strengths and they know their limitations, which I think is a difficult thing to wrap your mind around.
I think as well, we're saying like we've all given probably Anthony Brown a bit of stick this year, just where he's played, but he's sneakily up there. I think I've seen a stat on Twitter yesterday that, along with Trayvon Diggs, he's in the top 10 for pass deflections this year. And like I say, any other time he would have probably got a lot of credit for that. And because of just the way Diggs is playing his rookie year, it's gone kind of unnoticed, hasn't it? And it's a shame in some aspects, but also so as it might give him a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to keep playing at this high level, thinking, this rookie kid's, the second year kid's gonna keep getting the limelight, so I'm gonna keep playing under the radar, and I'm gonna show him what I really.
And everybody wanted to replace. I mean, again, myself included. It was Maurice Kennedy picked off Matthew Stafford in the scrimmage. Let's go! Like that's the guy. Like get Anthony Brown off the field. And Anthony struggled early in the season. I mean, but to be fair, the Cowboys played the Buccaneers and the Chargers, and that's a difficult proposition given the quarterbacks you're facing. But he had the most impressive interception a Cowboys defender has had in a long time with the way he concentrated on that ball against the Falcons. And if you're right, if not for Trayvon Diggs, he'd be getting a lot of credit. The same way that if not for Micah Parsons, people would be saying that Osa Odigizua should be Defensive Rookie of the Year. But they're just, the unfortunate circumstances for those two players is that they share, a uniform with guys who are having a little bit brighter seasons.
Yeah, that's very true. If we just flicking on to the news coming out of the game, so obviously with Tristan Hill and Michael Gallup came back from IR, DeMarcus and Neville Gallimore getting closer. We had Lareem Hajrolahu made his NFL debut at 31 years of age, and I think the attendance was 93,000, but RJ was not in attendance.
Yeah, I was not in attendance. My dad was at this game, though. He had a great time. They're getting healthy. I mean, and they might sustain another injury, and I think it's that's what they've earned the benefit of the doubt, I think, and we're all so quick to panic, right? Like last week, Randy Gregory goes on IR, and it's, oh my gosh, how are they going to deal with this, etc. They're 2-0 in games that they've played without DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory. Now it's a really small sample size. But they will find a way. They've earned the right to be trusted in those intense moments, which is something that we just, like I said, because before it was, okay, your best player's out, you're screwed. And that's kind of been who they've been for a long time. But, they still got to get DeMarcus Lawrence back. They still got to get Neville Gallimore back. They still got to get, Randy Gregory back at this point in time. They still got to get Brent Urban back from IR. I mean, they're getting healthy, at the right time. It's we've all been hurt a lot, so it's hard to let yourself run away with all this, but things are working out in the right way, at least in the middle of November.
Yeah, and another name that hasn't been mentioned pretty much all season, Kelvin Joseph got in and played a few snaps at the weekend as well.
He's the only one that I don't trust as much, just because that position is so difficult to transition to in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, and Anthony Brown has, because before, especially the first month of the season, it was, Kelvin Joseph has got to get on the field as soon as possible because Anthony Brown's getting beat, Anthony Brown's getting destroyed, whatever, blah, blah. And Anthony Brown has, his play has allowed time for Kelvin Joseph to acclimate to the NFL game. That's a really exciting thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the one man we haven't really given credit to in the cornerback room so far, and I know we here at the UK Cowboys love to big him up. That's Jordan Lewis had probably his best game in 2 years.
He was phenomenal. I mean, you can make a case that he had the best game of any Cowboy, I think, on Sunday. I mean, I was so happy he got the interception. He deserved a bright, a pop of a moment after the game he had. It would have been a shame if, because some people, they look at things like that. They say, well, he didn't even have an interception, like how, whatever. So it was awesome for him. And that's the thing, like I said, the floor. I mean, Jordan Lewis is now playing at a high level. You're getting this high level play from, think of Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown were big reasons for the Cowboys win. Like when has that sentence ever been true? And so, right now, the Cowboys they're cooking with gas. I mean, it's so terrifying to say out loud because you're so scared that the bottom's going to come out because we've all been hurt before. But it's a weird place to be at emotionally.
It is surely. So we're just going to flip it over and concentrate on.
Look at that. Wow.
Yeah. New, improved, and third season.
Yeah, since I've been on, you spent some money, you moved the furniture around. Goodness gracious. If Leeds could start playing well, Jamie would be on himself.
We lost 36 minutes, RJ.
I knew it was coming.
As well. And I was like, knowing you were coming on, I was like, I feel like a Leeds fan sat in the middle of the Stretford end, and I was like, I might have to keep quiet, but
Jamie, thank God you have the Cowboys, man, because as a Leeds fan, as a Texas Longhorn fan, like it is just not your year, but you got the Cowboys, so we're all good there.
And thank heavens that the Mavericks are playing all right as well at the minute.
But if we start looking through, as we say, looking through the defense, and I mean, the numbers are rolling through the screen there. So Dak, 24 of 31, 77% completion, 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 93.4 QBR, 127.9 rating. He also had a rushing touchdown. I mean, Dak had a very good performance, and we're barely even mentioning that fact.
I mean, and that's awesome, right? I mean, when you look at the small sample size from last year, you know, and again, they were 2-3 in games he played. If you count the Giants game that he was injured in, it was Dak. You need to be Super Saiyan for this team to have a shot, right? And if you're not, it's over. Like if you're just average, this isn't going to happen. And so, I mean, he's playing like one of the, you know, generally like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's well in the running to win MVP. But they don't need that on a do or die basis now, which is, I mean, you're right. Like he barely did anything in the second half. I mean, and they won 43-3. So that's a luxury that this team has created for themselves that is really, really, really rare.
Yeah, we got all so used to it over the years, haven't we, where the Cowboys have, you know, if you look at Super Bowl winning teams, have always had a real mix of a good offense and a good defense. And the Cowboys over the years, well, over the recent years, have always seemed to have a really good offense or a really good defense and never been both. And we saw it God knows how many times with Tony under center, and we've seen it in Dak's, we'll say, relatively short career so far, that we were having to rely on him throwing for 400, nearly 500 yards a game, for 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. The defense just weren't getting it done. And like you said, this game was pretty much done by half time. And if we can do that every week, that's just going to prolong Dak's career as well. I mean, what did he throw? How many 20 pass attempts he had this weekend? 24 maybe, if that.
24 of 31.
So I mean, so 31. So I mean, let's limit them for us and keep him fresh. I mean, we're forgetting that he's coming back off a really bad injury as well. So apart from the MVP, he's definitely going to get what is it now? What's the thing now? I've got comeback of the year. That's in the books easily.
Yeah. See, I kind of disagree, just a little bit, because generally the NFL doesn't like to give multiple awards to the same player. That generally doesn't happen. And so I could see a world where Dak wins MVP, so he gets like the main award, and then say Joe Burrow wins Comeback Player of the Year. You know, so that attention and love is shown to different people. I think Dak is winning one of the two. He's either Comeback Player of the Year, and the year MVP is, you know, whether Matthew Stafford comes back or Lamar Jackson gets in the fold or Kyler Murray, something like that, or he wins MVP. And if he wins MVP, then comeback definitely is Joe Burrow.
Yeah. I definitely take that. I'd rather him get the MVP as well, just for the fact, like I said, there's not many players, let alone quarterbacks, that's playing better than him at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, go on ahead, RJ.
No, I mean he's remarkable. I mean we're running out of adjectives. I mean it's different. I mean there's such a level of trust in him and what he does and what he's capable of doing that is really peaceful. I mean, you know, it's hard to find the last time we were truly stressed. I know that sounds crazy because I know people are stressed every week, but you do get the sense that, you know, if Dak's out there, if he's in the mix, like, you know, they got a shot. I know that it wasn't the case against Denver, but I mean, way more often than not, you know, he's got him in the mix.
You know, I totally agree in terms of the stress thing, but it's like it's kind of if it's ever really good, it's kind of a good stress in it. It's kind of just knowing if we have a slow start, when is this team going to explode in this game and get going and see what we've seen for the last few weeks. Whereas the years before, it's like, when are we going to throw this away? It's just unlike us, and it's. It probably sounds like I can't see where the next. We're probably going to. It's going to happen at some point before the season, but I can't see where the next loss is going to come from. Just from the level that we've been playing at this year, and the Patriots game with the 75-yard touchdown after we'd just retaken the lead, and then the game the week before this one, that in the previous years would have broken the Cowboys and just derailed our season completely. But it's refreshing to see that this team, they'll just stand in the face of adversity and go, right, you know what, let's just roll the sleeves up and let's get going again.
Right, and that disposition, I think, starts with Dak, and Brian will appreciate this. I mean, I'm still newer to loving soccer. I've been supporting Manchester United for a few years now. So when I first kind of jumped on, it was difficult, right? It sucked. It was not fun. But then United acquires Bruno Fernandes, and the world changes. And I love so much the word talisman when it's used to describe a soccer player. And I, obviously Cristiano Ronaldo's return has kind of changed that for United, but that's who Dak is. Like he is what Bruno was at first to United. Like this dude he's gonna will them. He's gonna carry them all with his bare hands if he has to. That's who Bruno reminded me of Dak, honestly, when that first run, when United had all those matches, where they hadn't lost away from home in forever or whatever that streak was. That's what he has, and there are not a lot of people in the NFL that have that on any teams.
Yeah, Andrew dropping in shade at a Leeds player there, I see as well.
No, do you know what, Valente? I know it's not for footy show, but there's no way that you want Calvin Phillips from us. Nothing.
Stranger things have happened, Jamie. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And as always, look, Joe, one of our biggest fans here from Italy, doesn't really follow soccer, but he's been a Cowboys fan since the Tom Landry days. I mean, this is great to see, and this is what this show is all about. Bringing, and it's the same for RJ's show. It's bringing everyone together, and we can all be from different parts of the world or different parts of the country, and we all love the Cowboys. So it's really great to see. But one thing I wanted to touch on, and again, RJ, this is giving you a little bit of a chance to have a go at the Texas Longhorns again. Connor Williams and penalties this season. I mean, again, as Jamie kind of alluded to, these would have derailed us in previous seasons, but we just seem to be getting away with it. It's going to catch us eventually.
Yeah, I mean, Connor is so interesting. It was 2 years ago on Thanksgiving that he tore his ACL against Buffalo. That was the game that almost broke the Cowboys. The game in Chicago the next week really broke them. But he came back last year, and a lot of people all off season, he was the most consistent player. He was the only one who survived. He was the only Cowboys offensive lineman who played all of last season. And is it ideal that he's been penalized? No. Did he make an incredible mistake in terms of the institution of higher learning that he pursued? Absolutely. But I mean, like, I just don't know what I like the discussion. I think it's fair to have the conversation. It's certainly fair to wonder, should the Cowboys address this? But what's the alternative? Are we starting Connor McGovern at left guard? Like, it's just a change for the sake of change? I realize, again, the penalties are not ideal. You'd never want penalties. But penalties are going to happen. Playoff teams, are penalized about 6 times a game historically. I mean, you wouldn't want, this to happen, obviously, but I think you're willing to live with it because he is, he's one of your better guards, and you just, you hope that it goes away. You hope you coach it out of him. But yeah, it's a tough moment for Connor Williams right now.
Yeah. I mean, with the comment there from Joe, I mean, if Tyron comes back, would you put Collins into Connor Williams' place? And then we have the comment here from Andrew. It's always Williams with the penalties. My question really is Connor Williams suffering from the fact that he doesn't seem to trust Biadish inside him, and he's had changes at left tackle for going on 3 years. He's never sure who's outside of him.
I think that's fair. He's certainly experienced the most change he's not Zach Martin, but Zach has still not had to deal with the level of infrequent, C that Connor has. Now, granted, Connor has Tyron Smith. Zach doesn't have that on the right side. I mean, it's not an apples to apples thing, but there's been a lot of chaos. I mean, Connor Williams' rookie year, Travis Frederick's gone, right? So what do you do? Yeah. Tyron Smith misses time. Connor Williams the second year, you got Tyron Smith still missing time a little bit. Travis Frederick's back. Okay, awesome. Now I've understood this NFL game. Last year, Travis Frederick retires. Tyron Smith basically misses the entire year. Your quarterback is awful for most of the season. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. And again, none of that makes the penalties better. None of that makes them more understandable or more tolerable. But he's had a rough go. And I think, he's a second-round pick, so you would love a little bit more return on that investment. But I think he's been a fine player for them. I think if Connor Williams is the worst starter on the team's offense, we're okay. You know what I mean? Like if that's the basement, then we have a really, really, really high penthouse.
Yeah,
I know we've touched on it a little bit in previous weeks, and he seemed to have more in his college career played out at tackles. So would it not be maybe fair to him to push him out to tackle? And I know we've had Collins play inside before, and sometimes that seems to beef it up a little bit more on the inside. And maybe if that happened, when would we see better from Connor Williams? Like you say, he was one of the elite tackles in college football when he was coming out on him. Someone just surely doesn't go from playing at the level he was to kind of being a forgotten man, so to speak, on that offensive line, to say that he's so much patched up every now and again.
I mean, I get it. And I like what if we looked at it this way? It's kind of like when you rearrange the furniture in your house, you know what I mean? Like, what if we put the couch over here? You know what I mean? Like, and then you're like, well, where would I watch TV from? You know what I mean? Like, it's a constant like game of Tetris. Yeah. And so I get that. But, if we're having this conversation, like the time for this was in Oxnard. You know what I mean? If you want to kick Connor Williams out the tackle, you want to move Lyle Collins back in, that's fine. The time to make any sort of radical change is not, the week before Thanksgiving with, high seating in the NFC up for grabs. I mean, you've made this bed. It's a pretty comfy bed. The blankets and the sheets are freshly washed. It smells nice. You had the linen sheet in there and everything. And so, you got to hold on. You're in this for the rest of this ride, however long it takes you.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing that I find interesting is everyone wants to talk about kicking Connor Williams back out to left tackle. I mean, do we forget that Zach Martin was left tackle at Notre Dame? Lyle Collins was the left tackle at LSU. We have 4 left tackles on our offensive line. You can't start 4 left tackles.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, and it's, again, in an ideal world, every Cowboys offensive lineman is playing perfectly, has no penalties, isn't allowing any pressures or any sacks. But I would challenge, I know it's not YouTube, but I would challenge whoever has discourse on this to find the offensive line where that's the case. I guarantee you right now, there are more teams than not that would trade their offensive line issues for wondering what to do about Connor Williams.
Very true. So moving along, and I mean, given the performance of our skill guys at the weekend, I mean, Zeke, whilst he had 14 rushing attempts, 41 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2-point conversion, some of the blocking from him really set up the passing game for Dak, and for obviously CeeDee Lamb was the benefit of that this week.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke is probably the most versatile player on the team, and everybody wants to see him lead the league in rushing. Everybody wants to see the celebrations, and that's what people rely on. But he is so valuable in terms of what he's willing to do, whatever it takes, however it takes. He's really emblematic of Mike McCarthy in that sense, I think. And you're right. I mean, the CD touchdowns arguably don't happen without Zeke. That's something that doesn't show up in the box score, the stat sheet, whatever. But I mean, man, we can sit here forever and talk about the contract and drafting a running back and the 4th overall pick. We could relitigate all that, but at the end of the day, given the composition of this roster, Zeke Elliott is contributing at a high level.
We had when we had Brad Sham on the other week, we were talking a little bit about stats in there and everywhere. And I think a lot of people do say that he hit the nail head. I mean, stats always got to tell the story. And if you looked at just the stats from the game, you would think, he had a poor game. He didn't rush for more than 60 yards. But his blocking was just immense. And like you say, that if he kind of set the tone, didn't he? He was like, yeah, let's roll up his sleeves. I mean, you're not always going to get the 100 yards. I mean, let's play the team game. And just a couple of the runs, picked up first downs to keep the drive going. And that's what it's what is it now? That's what 7-2. So we're getting to the business end of the season now, aren't we? So it's like you've just got to do what you've got to do. And could you argue that this was Zeke's best all-round game this year, just from a standpoint of what he did and help to keep drives alive? And
certainly.
I think I think a lot of people had said about his fumble as well when I was covering the game on Twitter. To be fair, I'd probably put that on more of that was a good play from the defensive player, just for the fact that he didn't have the ball out in front. He had it fairly secure. The guys made a really good play on Zeke, and that's just what happens every now and again. It's not one of his old kind of style fumble issues.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully the fumble was inconsequential. And you're right, just a great play. Sometimes sometimes you're going to make great plays. Sometimes they're going to work against you. But yeah, just you guys always bring out the soccer fan in me, given the UK Cowboys. I want to cater to the UK audience, and Zeke to me is Luke Shaw. I mean, that's who he is. Like, he is just I know that's not a kind thing to say right now, but he's Luke Shaw throughout the Euros. That's who he is. Like, he's gonna grind it out. He's gonna give you what you need. You know what I mean? And whether that's something for Zeke on offense, it's gonna be that, or whether it's doing the hard, dirty, gross grunt work, he's gonna do that too. Again, not a great moment to be Luke Shaw, but I mean, this past summer was a great time to be Luke Shaw. And that's the Luke Shaw that I'm talking about here. That's who Zeke Elliott reminds me of right now.
I wouldn't normally agree when it comes to Man United players, but I'll tell you what, you've hit both of the comparisons on the head tonight with that.
To be fair, I was talking about Luke Shaw playing for England, so it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. Can't see past that.
Well, I mean, I think, as we say, one of the players who came back this weekend, Michael Gallup, I mean, his toe tap catch right before, I think it was Zeke's second touchdown. I mean, that is the Michael Gallup we love and want to see. I'm going to ask a bit of a controversial question of both of you. And I have an answer of my own behind this. In the summer, we can get out of Amari Cooper's deal for $6 million. We could then start looking at re-signing Michael Gallup and potentially extending CD Lamb. So, put yourself, you're in Jerry Jones' shoes. What would both of you do in that situation?
Talk about this.
Jamie, I'll let you go first. I've bagged on Leeds enough. I want you to get a win here.
Talk about ruining the moment, Brad. I mean, this was all was celebrating. Nah, as much as I like Gallup, no, I'm keeping Amari Cooper. It's just for the fact. Look, we did it at Bama. Although he played for a relatively poor Raiders team, he was still a shining light. And if we cut him, how much are we on the hook for? $
6 million.
Right. But But then you're going to have to pay. It's going to cost you at least 12 for Gallup in it. To return, you're looking at minimum 12 a year, and just I think Cooper's a more well-rounded, natural number one wide receiver for me. That's not to say that Gallup can't be, but just at the position that this team is at this minute, this team is still more built to have a Super Bowl run than it is for a rebuild. For me, if we were in a rebuild, then maybe Michael Gallup, but for where we are, it's got to be Coop.
So if I have to pick, I agree with Jamie. I mean, it will be difficult and it wouldn't be fun. I would, I want to see Michael Gallup on the Ravens or something like that. If that's the case, it'd be a lot of fun and bring on the 2023 compensatory pick. However, I mean, Michael Gallup missed 8 games, and that I see DJ Dog asking the question here on YouTube. I mean, teams are going to throw a lot of money at Chris Godwin. They're going to throw a lot of money at Allen Robinson. Wide receiver isn't running back, but I think a lot of teams feel like we can draft, a wide receiver, et cetera. There's always a market for somebody, but I think unquestionably Michael Gallup's market has been impacted by the time he missed. Now, if the Cowboys go on a postseason run, they win the title game, they're in the Super Bowl, they win the Super Bowl. Michael Gallup has big games in those games. I mean, that changes things a lot. That changes the narrative because those are things that a lot of people see. But I think at the end of the day, GMs are going to say, "Man, he missed half the season. How do you evaluate him compared to Chris Godwin or something like that?" And so I could see Michael Gallup saying, "You know what? Let me go back on a 1-year deal. Let me stay in an elite offense, an offense I know, quarterback I know. I'll hit the market again in 2023 after I've had a full season and I'm not competing with Chris Godwin or Allen Robinson. I'll be the guy. Obviously I'll be coming off my second straight Super Bowl win with the Cowboys, and my stock will be higher than ever."
Yeah. That was the answer I was going for as well, was obviously because as great as Michael Gallup is, he's very much a vertical and sideline runner. Whereas with Coop and with CeeDee Lamb, they have a full route tree. They can play in the slot as well and give you that threat across the middle, but going vertically as well. So, and I think the point, and Valenti has brought it in here, is obviously Cedric Wilson has shown a lot this year in Michael Gallup's absence. He will be a cheaper option than Michael Gallup will be for 2022. So, and we still have Noah Brown, we've Simi Fehoko, we've Malik Turner, who are all there as well. So ultimately, I don't see Gallup coming back, but maybe to RJ's point of, you get him on a cheaper deal coming back for a second Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, the Cedric Wilson thing probably makes it a little bit easier to stomach. Obviously, it'd be a big miss, and I know personally, I was on the bashing of the Titans, but the Titans have stepped up this year. So that also helps it, the fact that you can probably rely on them a little bit more going into next season. Will the Cowboys find it? I mean, strike it lucky again next year in the draft. I mean, we struck lucky with, although he's out for the season. I mean, with Jabril Cox. I mean, he was looking at around a second round pick, and he fell to us in the 4th. I mean, so we could fall lucky there and pick up somebody there. So you never know, but it's definitely a lot easier to take knowing how this offense has played without him.
Yeah.
And it has a little bit of a ringing of Anthony Hitchens all those years ago. He bought that contract year. The Cowboys were never going to be in play to keep him. But it's sadly one of them things. And like I say, especially with the Cowboys are always at the forefront of people's mind, even if we've not been relevant for how many years they want to say. But we're always on nationally. We're always going to have a lot more highlight reels and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think players like that are always going to get looked at more than others.
I think that's well said. I mean, again, and that's, if they win the Super Bowl, I mean, and, we would all take this, but if they win the Super Bowl, Michael Gallup's probably gone. Dalton Schultz is probably gone. Even Connor Williams is probably a guy, because that's just the kind of thing, like, everybody wants a piece of that. And today Pro Bowl voting opened up, and I mean, we all know, but I mean, the Cowboys are a little bit of a different thing, and there are a handful. We talked about this on one of our shows recently. There's a section of, you make the Pro Bowl if you're a decent player on a really good Cowboys team. Like, that doesn't happen anywhere else. But if you're an average player on a very good Dallas Cowboys team, you're a Pro Bowler in a way that you wouldn't be somewhere else. And I think examples of that are like Greg Zuerlein. I think he's a fine kicker, but he's a household name. He's on a very good Dallas Cowboys team. I think Keanu Neal is a household name. He's on a very good Dallas Cowboys team. Might be a Pro Bowler. It's not like, I mean, the Cowboys will have a lot of deserving Pro Bowlers, but I think there's that section of guys, like Dalton Schultz. I mean, Dalton Schultz, obviously, you could make an argument should make the Pro Bowl, but if you believe other guys are more worthy, he's a really good player on a really good Cowboys team, catches touchdowns. That's even different than the other guys. And so that generally leads to some players, earning some Pro Bowl nods.
Yeah, it's very true. I think, we're nearly 55 minutes into the show, and it is definitely time to flick it over to defensive talk. And I mean, I think the defense obviously was the highlight of the game from Sunday, but I'm going to throw this straight in here from Joe. It's, do we believe D-Law comes back next year because he gets hurt every year? Jerry Jones might move on from him. Personally, I don't see it, but that's just me. So I'll throw it over to RJ and to Jamie, see what your thoughts are.
I'll never understand the disrespect that DeMarcus Lawrence gets. I mean, people just want to see sacks, and that's, they can't see past anything that isn't that. He's going to be awesome. This team's going to be so much better on defense when he's back. I agree with Andrew that, yes, Dorrance Armstrong was amazing. Randy Gregory's been amazing. DeMarcus Lawrence is still their best edge rusher. I don't see any world where the Cowboys can or should move on from him. Although, I mean, maybe they do for contractual reasons, but and it will upset me that it will justify all these people who don't believe in him, but he's still a very, very, very good football player.
Yeah, I fully endorse that.
I think when he got the contract to start with, and I know I was on this, well, you want to get sacks, want to get sacks. Then when you kind of look at it a little bit more of what do actually the Cowboys need from him, so he brings a lot more, doesn't he? He brings double team, he brings a lot of pressure on the quarterback. It causes havoc, and that's what you want. Yeah, it's not a sexy stat, is it? You know what I mean? For a defensive end, the stack is a sexy stat. But and just look at, and I think we've touched on it a lot as well, haven't we? What was the thing? The documentary that was on Hard Knocks. That was it. You got to see a different side of him as well. I mean, he's obviously a leader from the sideline. Those kind of people are a rare breed. Where they can play so dominant on the field and also be someone like that off it. I think he comes back, but I'd also want to know what would it be on the hook for? Because over the years, this team has made some awful decisions cap-wise, and we've started to see that turn round, and we're very savvy and very smart with the cap. So cutting him just for the sake of it might not be a good move to make for the next couple of years. Because, like I say, we're not in a rebuild position, are we? We don't want to be freeing up all this and weakening the team just for the sake of getting him off the roster because people don't see him getting all these sacks.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe's come back in there, and as he says, he believes in DeMarcus, and it's not a disrespectful thing that he's saying. It's just that DeMarcus has been off the field for this season. I get the point, but I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence is your All-Pro defensive end. Micah Parsons is your All-Pro/Pro Bowl linebacker. Trayvon Diggs is your All-Pro cornerback. You can't have enough of that caliber of player on your squad. And, yes, you might need to cut some of these guys to make room in the cap, but you don't get rid of elite or close to elite players for for that, And I mean, I think we're too much on the hook with DeMarcus Lawrence to really get out of that contract. Obviously, Stephen Jones is a cap wizard and could do something if needed, but I don't see it.
And it would be fruitless, I think. I mean, I don't know how that would, it would be, again, not quite the same as the Connor Williams thing, but it would just be change for the sake of change. I mean, to alleviate, this idea that he's not a great player. And so it would be silly. I would be upset. Yeah.
I suppose the other big question that we have from most of our listeners, RJ, what are your own thoughts on Randy Gregory and potentially re-signing him? I mean, I think Jamie and myself are both on record as saying hopefully we can get him re-signed and back end a lot of his deal, because the support structure that's been around him in recent years in Dallas has been so good, and the way Randy has spoken about the Dallas Cowboys seems to indicate that he would sign a new deal.
Yeah, and I think, you would love to see him stay and him have that affection for the organization. But, there's an argument to be made that he'll never get a contract like the one he's going to get this offseason, ever again in his life. And so, you certainly can't fault him for prioritizing the financial sustainability and longevity of himself and future generations of his family. And so I think, I don't know that the Cowboys let that one get away. They usually, they never lose players that they really, really, really want. I think that Randy's in that category.
Yeah.
It's, would it have been ideal if they had, gotten it done before the season and he had this huge, level of success, obviously, but I don't think it's something that's like backfired on them. I just think it is what it is. And, they'll be happy to pay him, when that time comes, because he's been awesome and he's earned it.
Yeah. Well, very true.
I think another way of looking at it as well is you'd rather him be in that position, wouldn't you, of we've got to pay him, than him having an absolute stinker of a year and be like, do we cut his losses and then do we risk him going somewhere else and balling out? I would say you'd rather be in a position of, he's kind of in the Cowboys caught in it. He's playing well, so it's like, well, we have the choice to keep him or get rid of him, whereas he's not being forced on this way around, is it, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good problem. It's a problem. It's an issue. It's something you have to deal with, but it's a good problem, and I think you would take it 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, very true. But moving on to actually talking about Sunday's game, and I mean, this is a game where we had 3 interceptions, and if I just bring it up here, sorry. Anthony Brown, Trayvon Diggs, and Jordan Lewis have intercepted this segment. Let's talk about our corners.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, Trayvon has had his struggles the last couple of weeks. Got back in the interception category on Sunday, which was nice to see. Definitely his least impressive game where he had an interception, which is obviously a lot of games this year. But, he'll take it, like there's nothing about that that's upsetting. Again, I think the Anthony Brown interception was the most incredible one we've seen in a long time from a Cowboys player. Jordan Lewis had the best game of all 3. It's just, it was great team football. They all kind of brought their own thing to the mix. Trayvon, I thought, had the biggest bounce back, had a really rough game against Denver. But this is still the weakest part of that defense. And so for it to have the success it did against anybody, is really, really nice to see.
Yeah. I agree in terms of it's probably the weakest part of this team. And there's just so much uncertainty about it. But we've been complaining for years that we're not getting enough takeaways from the secondary. We're starting to get them, and like I say, business end of the season, we need to start picking these quarterbacks off and getting these pass deflections. And like you say, it was. I think it was the Brown one, where it kind of bobbled a little bit, didn't it? And he kept his eyes on it. And in recent years, that would have fallen for an incomplete pass. You can see there's a lot of there's a different mentality about this team, and there's a lot of confidence going around, and like these brain farts, so to speak, are not happening as much. And I think Trayvon Diggs has obviously set the standard high, and I think it's certainly showing that. Like I said, we've had a couple of off weeks, but yeah, I think we're starting to see what this defense or this secondary even can really play to.
Yeah. And I think if you look at it, and this was the point you were making earlier, RJ, about, Kelvin Joseph has been allowed to grow into an NFL setup. We haven't had to rely on him this season. Like that can only serve us well heading into 2022. And I mean, the other corner that we drafted, Nahshon Wright, is contributing on special teams. It was him that recovered the fumbled punt and got that over the line. So all of these guys are contributing. But when I was looking at the stats, like you can see there, Mike Parsons had 6 tackles, but we had a lot of guys with 2, 3, and 4 tackles across that game. So it really does show the depth of the defense that all of these guys are contributing. Like that. Carlos Watkins, Terrell Basham, guys that are not getting any attention at all are doing something and are contributing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that really speaks to how they evaluated things over the offseason. Obviously, we had issues with how they chose to, sign or not sign certain players. I mean, we always, want to see more, want to see something different. But they believed in these guys. I mean, Terrell Basham's a guy who's kind of, lower on the list. Brent Urban, I thought, was playing really well before he got hurt. And so they believe. They threw a lot of picks at this thing in the draft, and they've seen a lot of success from it. DJ Dog shouted out, obviously Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis. Those are 2 players that have gotten second contracts with the team. I mean, their investments have, really, I don't say like paid off, like, their lottery tickets or anything, but they're reaping the benefits of what they sowed. And that's something that we haven't seen, as far as their vision in a long time.
Yeah. And I mean, Jamie, I know you love good safety. And I mean, as much as the corners are getting great attention, we've played a lot of 3 high safety. And again, Malik Hooker is contributing a couple of tackles a game. Jerron Kearse is our tight end killer. And, Donovan Wilson from some other college in Texas. From RJ's own alma mater of Texas A&M. I mean, he's laying the wood in the middle of the field as well. I mean, safeties, whilst not getting the stats, are doing a lot well as well.
Do you know? I think the defense probably epitomizes a lot of things of how this team has changed in the last 18 months or so, from going from the debacle that we had in what you could call COVID season, couldn't you, to where it's at now. And it reminds me a lot of kind of the Patriots way of building a team. Yeah, we all want these flash players of like a JJ Watt on the team or a Richard Sherman in his prime, but that's obviously not what a Dan Quinn defense is. It's put players in that can play this style, and we're reaping the benefits from it. And like I said, if you look at, like I said, just the Patriots way, that's how the Patriots have always played. It's players who fit that system. They don't have to be a household name. They just have to get the job done, and that's what you need. I mean, these players are in the NFL for a reason. Some of them just sometimes just don't suit the style of defense, and the players that we've got in do that. It's just going to be a shame when this season comes up, especially. I think is it Hooker, Kearse, I can't remember everyone. They're all that's it, Neil. They're making up less than $1 million a piece on this roster.
Yeah,
someone's going to buy it because of the way they played. But if that brings us a Super Bowl, then it brings us a Super Bowl, and we deal with that after. But yeah. The defense is definitely a positive on this season for the way it's been turned around. And that's from the front line right to the back. Although, yeah, probably the front seven's playing at a higher level. They're still getting it done when they're being called upon.
Yeah. And I've left that comment up there, RJ, obviously to talk about a guy from your own alma mater. I mean, you're wearing a GOAT t-shirt right now. I mean, I know this guy doesn't play in the same position, but has Donovan Wilson filled a GOAT-shaped hole in your life?
I don't love Donovan Wilson as much as I think most people would think. He's fine. I love him an appropriate amount. But I'm kind of done loving Dallas Cowboys safeties. You know what I mean? Like for preservation of my own, self-interest, I'm going to like them all from a safe distance, but I'm not going to fall in love with any of them just because I've tried many different times and been left hanging far more often than I would like.
But Joe brings up the comment here, and again, Dan Quinn got the match ball at the weekend. He's turned us from the worst defense in the NFL, making them a championship caliber defense. And RJ, I think you brought up this point several times on your own shows, is that, even if we can get to a middle of the road defense, our offense can carry us to victory.
Yeah, and that's, we've all said some version of that, right? Like if this defense was just average, this team would be really good. And I think they are an average defense. They're an average defense that's opportunistic, that has benefited from some turnovers, had some better than average moments, and so they've kind of gone a little bit past even what we needed, which is I think the explanation for why things are going so well in every capacity. But and I love that Dan Quinn got the game ball. He deserved every moment, obviously, against the Falcons, and so really happy for him. But I think that, Mike McCarthy still doesn't get enough credit here. Everybody talked about the 11 turnovers the first 5 games. They had 12 turnovers through their final 4 games last year before Dan Quinn was ever a part of the staff. And does that say anything on its own? No. But Mike McCarthy is, and not that, this is, a breakthrough philosophy, but he is hell-bent on creating turnovers. Now, we've seen that backfire on the Cowboys last week against the Broncos. They were trying a little bit too hard to strip the ball instead of just wrapping up and making a tackle. But I think the overall, Al Harris deserves credit. There's enough credit to go around, I think, to everybody, but obviously Dan Quinn deserves a lot.
Yeah. And Jamie, I'm gonna throw it over to you. We all know your pet cat coming out of the draft this year was Chauncey Goldston. I mean, how did you feel? I have a feeling you felt like a proud papa.
He's just another one of them that's just making plays when it's one of them in it where the old saying is you can never have too many pass rushers, can you? We're blessed this year that we've got some good ones, and when he gets on the field, he's making plays, and that's all you want. You want him to come in and make plays. Yeah, he might not be the flashy one where he gets a sack, but he's causing a bit of havoc in the offensive line, in the opposition's offensive line. He's helping get the quarterback out of the pocket, and that's what you want. Like you say, and a lot of people didn't like the pick. And like you say, I loved him coming out of college. In my mocks, I drafted him every time. Yeah, he's coming along nice, like you say. Would he get a bit more? It's one of them, in it, where would he get a bit more recognition for what he's done if us as Odigizua weren't playing to the level he was on? But if you're getting outshone by someone like him, then you're obviously you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's very true. But before we move on, anything more we'd like to talk about on the defense itself? I
mean, if they can hold on, I mean, like that's what this is about. It's nice. It's nice having an adult in the room, and I think the Cowboys are seeing the benefits of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, unfortunately, we're still owed a background from our wonderful Mr. Paul Stewart, who is actually at the minute in Texas. And we have had a few requests to update everyone on Paul's movements and what he's been up to for the last week. So we'll do that before the end of the show. But as always, we do love to give our special teams a bit of love. And I mean, how could we not give them love this weekend? We had a 31-year-old make his debut, go 5 from 5 on extra points. Brian Anger, 190 yards from 4 punts, kick returns, punt returns. And there we go, special teams touchdown. Blocked by Dorrance Armstrong, touchdown by Nashon Wright. I mean, I think McCarthy said it himself after the game that, he's been so impressed with the special teams this year and what they've been doing.
It's hard not to be. I know that the block punt against the Broncos doesn't technically count, but 3 block punts in their last 4 games. We haven't really seen any pop in the return game, which I think is what people, kind of associate special team success with. But they've slowly improved, and I think they're still a little bit wily. I don't know if I totally trust John Fossil, but they are. They're, I believe they're the 22nd ranked special teams group by DVOA as of this week, which is a little bit lower than I would have thought, but they're about average too. They're about average with some special pop plays and if they can create some short fields out of that. I know the short field they created in New England didn't end in a touchdown because, Dak Prescott can't cross the goal line in a visible enough way for certain referees. But it's strange. It's very strange to see. As by the way, the United States, I believe, just scored in their match against Jamaica. So if you allow me to, sing songs about the red, white, and blue.
Oh, we'll allow that for sure, RJ. But DJ Dog is asking, has Paul evaded the authorities so far? Inquiring minds want to know. So we can confirm that Paul has evaded authorities so far. So as we say, please stay in tune, and we will update you on Paul before we get out at the end of the show. But as we say, look, the block punt from Dorrance Armstrong and the resultant touchdown, as you say, RJ, that's 3 and 4 games, and I believe we also had one against the Chargers. We haven't been doing that in recent years. We haven't got close to blocking punts. And I do agree with your point, the kick return and punt return game hasn't been there yet, but I think that's something that might just happen. I think we're due one play before the end of the season.
I hope so. I'm about done with putting CeeDee Lamb back there. You know what? Mm-hmm. Let Cedric Wilson return punts. I don't need this. You know what I mean? I don't need to see CeeDee Lamb back there in general, let alone in the game you're dominating. But I could totally see it. Tony Pollard's come close. He had the great kickoff return against the Broncos to start the game. That was about the only good thing from that game. But they're close, and they're close in a lot of ways, in a lot of different senses.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that Pollard hasn't been back there a lot more than he has done. Just for that, that's what he did in college, wasn't it? That was his forte.
Yeah.
It's nice to see us making some plays. Excuse me. There's always something special about a big play on the special teams, isn't it? So one of the things I love about our roster is the fact that a lot of the guys make the team. If you put yourself about a bit and you get your chance that way, and it's a bunch of guys like say, I don't know, you can kind of I don't know if RJ will know, but obviously we'll know him by like kind of the old Wimbledon style, do you know what I mean? Like these rough and ready kind of players, do you know what I mean, that'll do all to get on the roster and want to make a play to shine. Like I say, it'd be nice to get a touchdown, but I think how he's coming, it seems like it a little bit with maybe like the secondary. It's been a little bit of a slow process as the season's built on. I'm sure it'll come in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. But before we do get out of here, RJ, let everyone know where they can find you and what shows you're involved in, just that we can try and boost your following as much as we can anyway.
I appreciate that. You said it earlier, Brian. My favorite thing about this time of year is that, we get to hang out and enjoy this together. Obviously Thanksgiving's next week here in the States, which is just kind of a time that people associate with football. And so it's really great. It's obviously a lot more fun when the Cowboys are doing well, but, as somebody who grew up loving the team, like a lot of people, and just kind of annoying all of my friends with wanting to talk about the Cowboys all the time. It is so cool to me to get to do stuff like this with you guys and share, Cowboys discussion and content with people. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at RJ Ochoa. That's just kind of a hub for everything I do, and photos of my dog, as you guys know. Obviously bloggingtheboys.com. You can search for Blogging the Boys anywhere, wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube. We create content that can be found in all of those places. And this is an exciting time. I mean, I mentioned growing up, the 2007 season was my senior year in high school, and that was just so much fun. I mean, this just such a really special time. And I know we have a lot of younger listeners and kids that are in high school themselves. And I just, every week is such a gift. And so I really just, I want us all to enjoy it. Like not every game is as fun as the Falcons win. Not every loss is as frustrating as the Broncos loss, but it's a fun ride, and it's the stakes are rising, which is going to make it a little bit more stressful. But I'm excited to experience whatever this season has in store with you guys and everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you and Papa Ochoa had your annual visit up to AT&T yet, or is there one more before the season is out?
We have not. We generally do a road Cowboys game every year. That streak came to an end last year, obviously with the pandemic, and we haven't done it this year. My wife and I don't know if I've told you guys, but we're expecting a baby boy at the end of January, and so his arrival has, or soon to be arrival, has complicated some things, and forced us to adjust some things. So there's no trip this year. Unless if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, I have to head there for work, and so he'll have to understand that in his early days of life. But no games in person this year. Just kind of manning things from the command center here.
Yeah,
you might have to put the road trip on hold next year, RJ, and you never know. They could be back over here, and then you can bring the family.
I know we've talked about that, and so that would be the dream. Is head on over there with the families, see you guys, hang out in person, have a couple pints, and hopefully United plays Leeds that weekend on Saturday, and we can enjoy a couple of beatdowns as United cruises to victory and the Cowboys beat the Jaguars or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. So before we go, as we say, we did promise to give you an update from Paul. So Paul is still, was up in Kansas last night for the Chiefs and Raiders game, was he? Or he's up in Kansas for this weekend's game.
I think he's still in Houston. Maybe he's going up for the Cowboys game.
Yeah. So if you are around Arrowhead Stadium on Sunday and you see a bald man in a kilt, please go up to him and shake his hand and ensure that he is actually going properly Scottish, and don't ask to check under his kilt.
I mean, I know he's traveling. Does Paul not have the internet? Can he not jump on where he's at? Does he not have technology? The UK Cowboys budget is really big. I mean, so how does he not have a satellite or something to set something up here? I mean, it seems to me like Paul's being a little bit lazy. You know what I mean? Let's get Paul on the show next time.
Do you know, AJ, because he has promised that he would come on either the Tuesday or the Thursday. He did pop on briefly Tuesday last week, but he was sat in a bar somewhere in Houston. He wanted to pop on and say hello to the guys.
It's not enough for me, Paul. I mean,
to be fair, we've thanks to Brian, we've been winding up a little bit because obviously, it's like when you're in groups on group DMs on Facebook. Even if you put it on mute, if someone can't go in it, you keep getting pinged. And Brian's been pinging Paul, stupid o'clock over here. So
you know what?
In the middle of the night there.
I'm just saying, I expect more from Paul at this point. You know what I mean? It's what I'm curious about is like how does Paul manage? Because from what I understand, like certain things are like on Disney Plus for you guys that aren't available here. Like, what does Paul do? Like, is he not able to watch his shows? Is like what's taking up his time? If all his shows are no longer allowed for him, why isn't he here?
Well, I'm going to jump to Paul's defense. Paul is actually on a date right now in Houston.
I mean, I've been to Houston 1,000 times. There's not a lot to see. I mean, it's an hour drive from College Station, so I've been there a lot, and whatever. But let's get Paul. How long has he been on this side of the pond? How long has he been? A couple days
since last Tuesday.
Holy crap, Paul! The time difference, jet lag, none of it is acceptable anymore. I mean, But let's get going here. Let's get Paul. Let's hold him accountable. It's really what I'm looking for.
We need some screenshots of this soon. We'll let her drop it in the group, and you know what I mean. Just tell him. Even RJ's getting on his case now. He's like he's letting the side down.
Well, I know after Sunday that Paul is heading into Dallas for Thanksgiving game, and he is catching up with. I know he's planned to catch up with Shannon, and he's catching up with Kelsey and Meg whilst he's in Dallas. So hopefully we'll get a guest appearance from some people in next week's shows. But before we get out of here, we do have to pay the bills. So as always, Jamie, I'm going to get you to do the shout out if I can find. Where is it? Our sponsor. There we go.
Yeah, as we say every week, if you're thinking of going now the pandemic's like kind of everything's opening up. If you're out to go watch the Cowboys, and you want to experience the best thing possible to be able to relive over and over again, then help our friends at Cowboys experience anything from meet and greets, tailgates, game day packages, and get to meet current and former Cowboys, including the original 88, Drew Pearson, DCC alum. It's such an amazing experience. So if you head out there, make sure you hit them up and make the best of your trip. And if you do use them, use the discount code UK Cowboys, because as we say every week, if you use the code, what do you get? As Valenti says there, you get free stuff, and everyone loves a bit of free stuff.
Especially a Yorkshire man like you, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, it's Yorkshire, but we're tired.
And of course, as always, we do love to give a shout out to our fellow content creators. So, of course, RJ and the team at Blogging the Boys, the team at the Dallas Cowboys Media, including The Break, Talking Cowboys, Hanging with the Boys, the guys at 105.3 The Fan, Big Game James, Katie's fun tweets, and of course Jeff Reinebold, who's been giving us shout outs all week on his own Twitter channel. But we're going to get out of here. As always, RJ, thank you so much for your time. We absolutely appreciate everything you do for us and all the content that you and the guys over at Blogging the Boys put out.
Thanks, RJ.
Thanks a lot, guys. Y'all have a good rest of the week. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Peace out.
Good night.